name is Daniela. I'm a proud cat mom and dog mom, and today we're going to be making a really cute project on how to paint a pop art paw print for you to proudly display anywhere in your house, just full of color, full of fun, and full of cuteness, of course. So if you're excited for today's project, please make sure you hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm. Be much appreciated, and let's get started. Using as inspiration, what I'm basically going to do is flip the heart upside down, so it's going to look more or less like this. Obviously the beans will be way more accurate on paper, but we're just gonna add these little toe beans at the top, and then we're gonna be making the heart be more full because I don't like the random white thing, but it's all in preference. So just remember that art is always subjective. So go with whatever your heart tells you, but we're gonna be making this in watercolor, so it's gonna be really cute and super excited. So let's see how it turns out. So the first thing we're going to do is just to draw a heart. Just gonna make it at the center, and then we're gonna draw some beans. I like to make long beans because they remind me of Benny's beans, because he had really long beans. He made the best biscuits with his beans, so we're gonna make them long for him. So the original artwork that we're using as inspiration has a curve around the corner, so we're going to add that. Then there's like a second curve that comes out from it that goes a little past the midway point. Then there's another curve that branches out from there. We have the second one that branches out, and then we have a semicircle that's a little long. And we have another circle that's more like the shape of the sun. And then there's another one that comes out from the bottom that does like a sharp turn because it intercepts the bigger one. And we have that. We have this one. And then here we can go ahead and also do a little heart upside down, of course, just for some extra love. And since I didn't like the white, I will actually make this into a black outline and fill it in. But this is more or less the idea, so let's get painting. For this part, I grabbed the ruler, but you could grab anything that has a straight edge. And then we're just going to be making some straight lines with the watercolor. So as you saw, watercolor, it can get pretty tricky because it could leak under the glass or whatever you use to keep straight. So just keep in mind that if your brush is too wet, that will happen to you. If you're making wide lines, you can also try using a brush that's a little bit wide so that you're not doing it with the smaller brush. It all just depends on how comfortable you feel. And don't worry about going over the pencil lines. As long as you just have one pencil line, that's fine. So like here where I have a little bit more, I'll want to erase that before I add any color, but otherwise everything else, because we're using that black outline, it'll be covered. All right, so while we wait for this section to dry, we're going to get started on the green areas, which is this strip here and this area, as well as here. So these two have polka dots of different sizes, and then this one's just a solid color. So we can start adding these in because it won't blend with the blue. The main thing with watercolor is just to make sure that everything stays wet as you're working it, so that you don't have any weird lines in between. And I ended up not making the circle as big as the original one. I'm just going to make an additional line just to divide it a little bit more. And then now we can do this part green, but we have something separating it. Just gonna keep on going with the next color, which would be the orange. So since the toe beans aren't a part of the original design, I'm just feeling out the colors. I still have enough orange to fill in later, so we'll keep just working through the rest of the bigger areas, and then at the end fill in the toe beans based on what makes the most sense. Since the blue and the green dried out already, then we can start working on the yellows and the purples. The main thing as we're doing the yellows is really just to make sure that there's no extra lines, that everything is as clean as possible, because yellow is a very light color, so any imperfection is going to show through. If you're using acrylics, it's not as much of a big deal, but for watercolor it is. As you're painting, you want to remember to do the inside sections first and then do the outside, so that you don't have to worry about using accidentally touching what you just painted. Now we can go with the purple. Alright, here at the corner is gonna be the same thing as the blue. So the blue was in this direction, and on the original painting is also in the same direction, but I actually want to try and do it the other way. I think it would make for a more interesting composition, because then I can, if I do these in this direction, then I can do them like this, so they're just like perpendicular. So I think it will give it a little bit more of a fun feel. Honestly, even just making them straight would probably look well, and wouldn't be as challenging to do as what I was just describing. Because if I do it this way, I have to think about making it straight on both sides, whereas if I just focus on only the circle area here on the edge, then it makes it a lot easier, because I'm just controlling the tip to the end of the page. For the next section, we have this semicircle on the side, and on the original picture this is pink, so we're just gonna follow the same color palette and make it pink. So for this section, since I already painted so much of it, I don't want to risk using a wider brush. I'm just going back to my thin brush to make the diagonal lines. now that we finished the majority of the colors, we're gonna go back to the sections with the stripes and fill in the white sections, and then start working our way through the beans and then also the polka dots that we have to add. There are different ways of going about the stripes. Like you could have painted the entire thing and then done the blue on top, but I didn't want the colors to be altered because I actually like these shades of blue, so that's why we're just doing them step by step. But it is really important that the colors dry out completely so that they don't end up blending in. Before I do any more of the toe beans, I want to add the polka dots because it's going to alter the way everything looks, and I don't want to overload this with color and then mess the rest of the balance of the painting. Here on the green we had bigger blue dots, so I'm gonna using the brush with the wider tip. Notice as I was making the dots, some of them came out a little bit bigger, and that's just because of the water retention. So some of them I picked up more water on the paintbrush, but that's fine. The main thing is just letting all of it dry without disturbing it so that it doesn't get smudged. Now that we did the blue, now we can move on to the orange section, which had like a dark orange dots. These just seem to be at random, so I'm just gonna do like a triangle pattern just to make it easy to follow along. So I accidentally picked up more paint than I intended to, so I'm just going back to make some of them bigger. Originally this area here had, it looks like a very light yellow dot, but because we already painted over all of this, I'm just going to use a darker green to make the dots. And the dots on these ones also seem to just be following like a triangle pattern similar to the paw print, but I think just to differentiate, we're just going to follow the curve. So we finished the polka dots, so now we're going to be adding some hearts. If you wanted to, you could also add smaller paw prints around the edge, but I think the hearts will look cuter with the overall theme being a pet lover. So you could always try to draw it first, or you could just paint as you go. I don't want to risk the eraser removing any of the watercolor paint because I did such a thin layer over here, so I'm just going to try to guess more or less where I want the hearts and then fill in the space. Finished adding the hearts, but I still think that it looks a little empty, so I'm going to do some smaller dots all around it just to fill it in. And I'm just going to switch into my smaller brush so that it's not like overpowering. Since I accidentally made this into a heart, then I'm just going to add another smaller heart on the opposite side to even it out. Now we're going to go ahead and do the green dots and the yellow. So this is how it looks for now. As you can tell, I accidentally ended up merging some of the dots, trying to move the pad around because I knocked it against the watercolor palette. So these dots, whenever you do make them, just keep the pad in the same place so that you don't have that same mistake. but I'm gonna let it be anyways because I don't think it looks that rough. It still fits in, and we'll let this dry and afterwards finish up the paws and then come back with some black ink to outline all of it. So we let everything dry out now, so you can see. You can always check watercolor because anything that's wet is going to show up shiny, but everything is completely dry now. So I'm gonna take advantage and go ahead and erase all of the lines, because even though we did say that we're going to outline, just in case there's anything lingering, we don't have to worry about it. Next, we're going to add the details for the rest of the paw prints. Now that we finished painting the rest of the paw prints, then we're gonna let it dry again, and then we're going to do the ink. Alright, so for this last step, it's probably the most delicate because of the black ink. Usually I would just leave it actually as is because I like the white areas, but since we're trying to make it true pop art, it does have that dramatic black on it. So we're going to work our way through the painting and slowly add in. Remember to always just keep in mind, like, go from whatever your hand is. Like if you're a righty, you want to go left to right or the opposite way, just so that you don't end up accidentally smudging things. So you want to start from the top corner and then go all the way down if you're right-handed, or the opposite if you're a lefty. And I am opting to use my thinner brush because if I make any mistakes, I feel more confident that I will be able to fix it. Like my mom likes to say, it doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be made with love. Like this, where we can see that there's that long line, I would recommend trying to do as much of the line at the same time as possible, just so that you don't have different widths. So like you'll notice even on the blue section, it's a little bit thinner here than it is here, but unless you're being really picky about it, you won't really notice it. So I think that's fine. I just enjoy using ink and watercolor, so I like the challenge. But if you're making this at home, you can definitely just use a Sharpie. So this is the final result. I hope you enjoyed making this with me as much as I liked making it. I think it came out so much prettier than I could have anticipated. And if you're looking for inspiration on what else you should do next, you can check out my mom's video on how to make some fabric slippers with a little pet touch. So she'll see you over there.